Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So with like every break in between a pinball table that I play, I tend to, at the moment, end up watching some YouTube video of somebody else talking about pinball. And I went through and listened to another person's top 10. Um, and it really wasn't something that was exactly in line with my top 10, and it opened my eyes to just kind of the subjectivity of pinball and how well your hands personally play with a pinball table. I honestly do think that, for instance, this person's top 10 included Last Action Hero, and I kind of hated that table. I've kind of said on some of these tables I've kind of hated them. Only two of them of the entire curation have I just thought there's no reason for this to exist, to even be on this list. But clearly, some people do enjoy some of these tables a lot more. Fathom, for instance, not a table I've thought a lot about. Apparently, very popular. Um, Adam's Family, talked about a lot. Apparently, very popular amongst a large group of people. I don't think it's really that good of a game. Whirlwind, overhyped by a lot of people, in my opinion, but obviously, a lot of people do like it. So it really goes to show that there's this curation of tables in particular does have some appeal to somebody. Now, that being said, I also think that there are some tables out there that were definitely made and forgotten about and that were just awful in general. And there's a long lasting effect of pinball where tables just have to play good for somebody. Somebody has to like them, or those tables are going to get chopped up into pieces and used to fix other tables. Um, and so, yeah, there is a high risk in making a pinball table and it being bad, whereas you can make something like Cyberpunk 2077 for a digital video game, and it can be awful on launch day, and you can just continuously put out patches. And theoretically, on pinball tables, you could put out digital patches to try and change things digitally, but you can't really change the physicality to a table that much. Also, you can, at any day of the week, look at the releases on Steam and see that hundreds upon hundreds of new games are released. Well, not every day, but there's probably no less than a dozen terrible, low effort garbage games that are released on Steam every single day. Most of the time selling for less than 70 cents. Most of the time smelling very much like they are just being listed on Steam to launder money from one business to another. Uh, so you just don't have that in pinball, and thank goodness. The only really low effort pinball tables I've ever seen have been like digital versions. I would say the Microsoft pinball table is not a good example of that, but there definitely were some early Windows 95 pinball video games that were pretty awful as far as their design and played pretty terribly. And those certainly played into the same factor where in Windows 95 era, just about the times that these tables would have been coming out in the real world, emulation would have been nowhere close to being strong enough to actually make a table work. I also wanted to point out that I did see another modification for Twilight Zone. By default, the gumball machine in Twilight Zone only has the special Powerball and two pinballs in it. But there is modifications, aftermarket modifications, that will put colored, shiny marbles on the edges of that machine in the plastic dome to make the gumball machine look like it actually has gumballs in it. And it definitely adds a lot of color to it. Uh, it also certainly highlights the chances that if you look at a table these days, there's a high chance that there's some kind of aftermarket modification put on it. And there's almost a 100% chance in 2021, looking at any table, there is an aftermarket market replacement piece put in it. I suspect you're going to find very, very few tables with original bulbs on them. They're almost certainly all going to have LEDs on them. I imagine they even make LEDs that are specifically dimmed to look like the old bulbs and not super bright LEDs. Uh, I imagine almost all the rubbers and all the slingshot pieces and all the rubber bumps on tables when they need to be replaced today are not being replaced with original stock or original parts that were made around the era that the table was made, which does highlight a thing like Theater of Magic where you probably would have to have somebody custom mold a new magic treasure chest to fix or replace a broken one in Theater of Magic, or have somebody 3D print it. Anyways, that's enough setup for today. We don't have that many more tables to go through. Who done it?
I was on the case.
1995. So I was thinking this table would be something along the lines of a Clue / Cluedo theme table, but whodunits, I guess, come before Clue. If anything, the Clue movie is a parody of several whodunit movies that came out decades earlier, and there definitely were whodunit movies and whodunit stories, and even a few whodunit themed video games that came out. So, Whodunit 1995, designed by Dwight Sullivan and Barry Osler. This table combines the thrill of gambling with the intrigue of murder mystery. Players take the role of an ace investigator, Nick Spade, as they collect clues, interrogate suspects, and catch killers. The playfield features a functioning slot machine and a unique scoop ramp, which feeds 3 separate habit trails to lower, raise, or exit the elevator casino. A mysterious murder, 1 victim, 20 possible scenarios. So each time you play, maybe a different scenario. Who has the motive? Who has the skill? Everyone's dying to know who done it. 2,416 of these tables were produced. Not a huge number. What jumps out to my head certainly is the idea that there would be a slot machine on the table. At this point in 1995, at least for Bailey, they have abandoned any fear of pinball being gambling and embraced it totally. Jackbot had that kind of same feeling. But yeah, to have a slot machine is crazy. To have the gutter have gold coins. The only thing it seems like they didn't actually do is choose to actually have the machines pay out in anything other than a ticket machine option that most arcade owners wouldn't actually have ever implemented. You can see there are 5 characters with different names but look similar to some of the Clue characters. And then you have 4 pieces of equipment that seem to be collectibles that the investigator would use, and then 5 pieces of evidence or clues, and then 5 different missions. So there's like 25, 24 different things on this table, but then they have this nice just kind of red background in general, so the table's not overflowing with art, where we've seen that a lot. You have this magnifier element over the slingshot, which is interesting because what that feels like is that is either stuck directly to the top glass, or they've made the slingshots on that side at least lower than its normal height, or they've made the art for the top, for the dividers between the inlane and the outline, very tall. And I guess that's what they really did, is they have just a really tall art there. You have 1 standing target, 1 sneak-in shot that maybe you're not supposed to actually shoot the ball up there. Maybe that's just there's a sinkhole there, and maybe you are supposed to hit it here, and then it drops it down there to the left in lane. You have the slot machine. You have 2 standing targets on that side. Here's a curved plunger. I much prefer that than the shooting up and then landing onto the in lane. But I could also see the argument about not doing that every single time, because that was a gimmick that had been done for many decades, where the idea of shooting up a ramp and then dropping down to the in lane is a newer concept. There's a manhole cover, which I assume the ball just sticks there. There's a roulette wheel curve here that I guess that's a sinkhole uh, that it lands into, and it actually spins an actual roulette wheel with double zeros. Which honestly I don't know how you'd even be able to know for a fact that you landed on a specific number. See, the real weirdness about this is you've got, how many is it? 36 different numbers, 37, 38 different numbers on this. So even in 2021, to have a rotary encoder, which is the device you would need to know how much something has spun, a rotary encoder that does 36 different steps or 38 different steps is kind of insane. And that's with modern technology. How in 1995 would you have been able to spin a ball and make it land on each of the 38 different ones? You must have not been able to do it. So what I would almost assume here is that it never spins and lands on some numbers, and it actually only spins and lands on maybe one red, black, one or two red numbers, one or two black numbers, and one, maybe two of the zero numbers, and that's it. Or this spins and the ball lands on some random number, but it has nothing to do with what is shown on the screen. That would be my biggest thought, is that it just spins and it just lands in random. Here we have a loop that comes back here, and it seems like you might be able to nudge it. It doesn't really look like there's a gate or anything, though, that would get it into these kind of locked in 3 bumpers, perfectly in the triangle, 3 bumpers. And there's just slingshots on the edges of it. So it's just bumper, 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 which I wish more tables really had that. If you sink down the middle, there's a sinkhole. If you drain out here, it comes out that ramp. There's a telephone scoop there. And then there's gotta be some way going up this ramp that you either half-heartedly make it this way with half force, or you make it all the way this way to this. But then you have Tony's Palace. And how do you get to Tony's Palace? It seems like there's a metal slant here where the ball from the sinkhole would just shoot it directly up into this, and 2 lanes go to the left and 1 lane goes to the right. And under that, it seems like there's maybe some pop-up targets, but they're not up at the moment. So you've got kind of a high level of shots that seem to end up going up the same center lane to Tony's Palace. And I don't think that there's a that might make a fairly boring gameplay. So far, it doesn't look like there's a kickback, no center peg, but there is an auto fire, which is what they're calling ball saver. When we look at the art here, it's 5 people, potentially as murderers, and the investigator, and an elevator, and the slot machine. And then they're all standing on the outline of a corpse. seems like a decent thought for a theme, certainly. One, you're not paying the license fee for Clue from Hasbro or whoever would have owned Clue in 1995. It's definitely Hasbro now. They own pretty much every board game that's what you'd consider slightly classic. But you can still basically do that. I wouldn't be surprised if the movie Clue came out in 94, 95. So I could see this. Once again, you have a flyer that has 2 UL listings on it stamped. I wonder what the deal with that was. Seems like this table's going to have an expert or novice mode too, so that'll be interesting. So our standard goals are complete a super skill shot, earn an extra ball, activate the elevator of madness, which is, I imagine, that Tony's Place middle section. It kind of looked like a clock, but I suppose that is an elevator indicator, an old-fashioned one. Collect a flashlight, which I'm not sure if you get the items in order, or if flashlight's just fairly hard to get, but you can get it out of order. And then activate basement multi-ball. 16 minutes into this episode, let's start playing. So there's a lady in the shower getting stabbed, which that's interesting. That's definitely interesting that you would start and sell on sex like that and not have it as particularly the advertisement.
Follow that cab.
You know what's interesting here?
Meet me in the basement? Interesting.
Is... Oops. Talk about it not being warmed up. I didn't really see anything here that would tell me what would actually start the slot machine. So I guess it's the telephone? So I just got like 3 bars. And inherently this kind of just highlights the issue. It's not a sinkhole though, it's a straight up scoop ramp that shoots the ball up.
Hey, come back here.
Which, I'm surprised that even works. Like, this really highlights the issues though of taking and trying to make a pinball and then focus around the mentality of slot machines. It's just like you're taking 2 fully fleshed out and completed games that have already existed for a long time and trying to turn it into one amalgamation of a game, and it just feels like overly complicated. And unless I can get the center lane shot particularly well done, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get the slot machine to work.
And Tony became lovers.
I like the voice acting on this. This is a lot of voice files, and you definitely would want that. Alright. Let's go with Bruno.
Sorry, I have an alibi.
So we've eliminated the suspect. And every time you shoot up the center, it seems to go up and down on the elevator counter. So even though these are like 3 connected areas, you're using it to navigate in a crazy way. like just utterly insane way. I do like that the standing targets that come up later in the game, and they make it so they're angled so that you won't end up yeah, you could just do figure 8 shots there forever. They make it so the ball's less likely to bounce back straight down the middle.
Ride the train.
Generally speaking, this is mostly a fan layout for a table, but it does also kind of make a cardinal sin, in my opinion, in that it makes it feel like you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And you're gonna have a hard time in your mind to justify that you're actually making a different shot because you hit the slightly to the left thing. So we start with another murder. So is it
And then I was on the case.
is it always that Trixie gets killed, or is there something more to, or is it just that there happened to be a 1 in 5 chance of that and we managed to make it happen twice in a row? I'll take a clue, I guess.
Take a cab.
And I guess there will never be a scenario where more than one person dies. So I don't think you have to worry specifically about there never being
There's some evidence for you.
a lack of voice actors. And we've only triggered a couple lines, but I felt like for a second we were going to hear a lot of talking, and then this was going to feel very much like an old whodunit movie where it is mostly just talk. That Tommy gun sound effect is cool, but it is also a little shot. It's saying TPA, and I assume that stands for the Pinball Association. I also realized that some of the smaller table developers that exist right now, like Jersey Jack, really haven't made that many tables. So if you were to try and make like a top 10 Jersey Jack tables, it's very possible they haven't made 10 different tables. So the butler has now been killed this time. Now, I don't know if that means much changes other than just the initial animation. Let's see. Just accuse Victoria immediately.
Sorry, I have an alibi.
I think that's generally what you want to do, is that you're either going to have to figure out enough clues to figure out who really did it, or that may very well just not be possible, and you do have to just eliminate all the suspects. But it feels like for a table like this that the goal would be to be able to eliminate suspects multiple ways. Shoot spin shots to get it to launch. Spin shots, I assume, are any of the blinking things on the table.
Hey, taxi.
I feel like the ringing telephone could easily be annoying as a sound effect. So this might be one of those tables where at some point I might just turn it down. And then you have the blinking strobe light on it. This table doesn't play particularly well, I'll say.
You could use that.
Like, in almost every other table that you've seen me play, in the first 20 minutes or so, I usually have just a
Come on, baby, come on.
hugely expensive, or hugely high-scoring, lucky game. Oh, so the roulette table at the top there does not spin at all. It's just a plastic toy. Which, okay, that makes more sense for 1995. And I'm sure you could probably find some kind of aftermarket element to make it spin if you wanted to, but like I said before, even in 2021, a 38-step rotary encoder with a 38-step stepper motor attached to it, which is the other thing you would need to actually spin the roulette wheel, is just highly unlikely that you would be able to affordably buy something like that. Although arguably on a pinball table that if you were making today probably would sell for $10,000, spending $200 or $300 on a rotary encoder and a stepper motor wouldn't be that crazy, depending on how much it's appreciated. But if you were going to do that, then you probably would want it like under the table, very much like how the game Teed Off had a roulette wheel where it would spin the wheel. And Teed Off had a much bigger wheel where it was spelling gopher twice, which is like G-O-P-H-E-R, so 10 steps on a much bigger wheel with a rotary encoder or some technology like that makes a lot more sense. I don't know if when it's spelling taxi like that, if that means only a specific letter from taxi is lit for a skill shot, or if it just means any of those will get you that one thing. I feel like you hit one no matter what, so that would almost imply it is a timing factor on the skill shot on top of trying to get the reward. Unlike something like Star Trek The Next Generation where you just push the button and by pushing the button it locks in the reward. It drains the ball too fast down the left lane. It needs a little bit of a wiggle. So that would be a modification I would make here. But honestly, I think this is a table I'd have to just start all over with. It just does not play particularly well. Because what happens, I think, here is that there's just a little too much going up in that top play field that allows for the ball to kind of bounce back.
Come on, baby, come on.
It doesn't ask whether you want to bet on black or red, so we don't have any rollover lanes on this table. this table's a little bit nicer with the standing targets. Like any of the targets you hit seems to light up the 3 indicators, so it really is just a 3 of the same target. And I have seen in more modern tables what they've been able to do is just put 2 standing targets on the edges of a long line and then a piece of plastic in between them. I guess the technology just wasn't there yet to potentially combine a row of stand-up targets.
And then I was on the case.
I just hit A and I don't think I actually got a clue. Everything says jackpot,
Impressive.
which that seems like that's
I
too
looked up and
easy to
saw
get a
Lady
jackpot.
with all her beauty.
The outline angles, obviously not that good. So the sneak hole in the back doesn't seem like it's ever
Meet me in the
accessible from the front. So what I think I would do to address the issues on this table are to try and have the shot much further back, and or if I can't move that, and even if I could move it, I think I would like to have them be sinkholes that pop the ball up with a consistent force and a consistent direction. If you did move it back,
Come on, baby,
you could
come
also
on.
have more of an upper playfield with some pegs over the bumpers, and then you could potentially have some nudging going on too. Pack of rats. That's gross.
Follow that cab.
Yeah, it really feels like the way this table is designed, more than likely you're going to just constantly run into a scenario where you're ending up on one of the many levels below the penthouse and above the basement, which I assume there is a penthouse or top floor of some sort. Every skill shot's angled so badly that you end up draining down the center, which you shouldn't be designing a game where you particularly
Most impressive. Jackpot.
have to nudge the game as soon as you launch the ball.
Take a cab.
There is a penthouse and a roof. I just looked and saw. And it doesn't light up the floor that you're on, which is nice. And there's a main floor in the basement. And I don't know if there's much you could have done to improve this theme. For what it is, it works.
Somebody, come quick!
The skill shot is happening. Even when the animation is playing.
Get in the cab.
Okay, now if I can just get in the center shot, I could have gotten to the basement. There. So it does kind of feel like eventually there would be a point where you'd end up in the basement. Yeah, this ball hole needs to shoot the ball back upward into the play field instead of shooting it down to the in lane with such force. The angles on these stand-up targets are still wrong, and still let the ball hit the center. A center peg might help a lot on this table if you can't do anything else. The magnifier over the right in lane is visually distracting. I don't know if it's really playing a major role in my struggle here. Certainly this is in that same vein, though, of what I was talking about, where there is probably somebody that loves this table. Like, I bet there is some expert pinball tables that love the difficulty of this table and love the fact that they can't just do everything and solve the mystery. But there's definitely weirdness too, because like, let's go back and look at the table for a second here. There's the missing butler, the broken mirror, the buddy dagger, the sticky fingers, and the tattoo. So if each of those cases are one of the 20 different scenarios, then you have to, I imagine, squeeze those scenarios into those 5 different case files, and it wants you to do in one gameplay all of that, and that just seems really, really unlikely to happen. And yeah, this whole scoop, the way it works, it's just like crazy. And that sinkhole doesn't really do much. Hitting that standing target there chooses red. Hitting a standing target back in that corner chooses black. That seems unnecessary. This never spins. It's just a molded piece of plastic toy. Which at a certain point, if that's the case, then they should have made the white ball a little bit smaller. This roulette concept seems additional. The phone sounds annoying. I thought there was going to be more conversations back and forth, but really we've only triggered one conversation in 40 minutes of gameplay. This concept, in theory, would be nice, but I kind of would just like to be able to hit a sinkhole and the roulette wheel spin, and that's it. Don't give me this second chance idea where then it disrupts me and I have to try and hit other shots, particularly when you've given me such a difficult shot in the center lane. It's mostly the center lane that's the problem here. I feel like you probably would have wanted a way to move this to the top, and then the left shot should have brought you to Tony's Palace. More than anything. Let's see, I don't get the novice and pro mode elements, because we saw that as a selling point, and apparently that never ended up in the actual instructions of the game. Maybe under the gameplay. I think you run a fairly high risk that some parents would not be happy with their kids playing a game with a lady getting stabbed brutally in the murder in the shower at the very beginning of the game, or just showing the silhouette even in a blacky dot matrix display form. And then the rest of the game does not feel like it's in that same vein. And that same mentality certainly shows itself when you have
Who does this belong to?
when you have like the Clue Junior versions of the table board games, and it's like they're looking for the missing cookie or something like that, and there is no actual murder in Clue Junior. Like that would be in part
Come on,
the
baby,
kind of
come on.
audience you would want to at least be approachable to in pinball, where this table feels like it's oddly targeting only adults, and frankly it's only really targeting older adults who would have nostalgia for the old 1940s, 1950s whodunits, or people who would have seen the parody. It doesn't feel like we're eliminating floors. And even if we were eliminating floors, there's so many. Like, I don't know how you play this table. Seems like you'd have to have incredibly powered and thought through shots. And see, there I just made a selection, not because I was making a selection, but because I was just keeping the ball in play. So if they're going to ask you to make a selection in any pinball table, they need to have the ball locked during that time.
Come on, baby, come on.
And they do that sometimes here. Seems like you pretty much always win the roulette. Seems like your odds are definitely higher than 50-50, which roulette is not a 50-50 win chance. It's actually lower than that because of the 0 and the double 0. And even basic math that you don't really even have to understand often goes over people's head with things like roulette, where if you have a table that has a single 0 versus a table with a 0 and a double 0, your odds are better to play the table with the single 0.
I was on the case.
And yet, plenty of people still will line up for the double 0 table as much as the single 0 table if they were right next to each other. And they started adding at some point progressive record keeping on the roulette table to make it show the last few numbers that it rolled on, to convince people that a table is likely to go one way or the other. But they show
Say, where'd this come from?
only the last few, where you would pretty much need to see the last 100 rolls to even begin to have a chance for that information to matter.
Meet me in the basement? Interesting.
The multi-ball always says meet me in the basement,
Ride the train.
whereas it feels like it should randomize to meet me in the basement or meet me on the roof. I kind of hate when pinball does this and you lose as soon as you start a multi-ball. It is one of those instances where I really would just like it to throw me a bone and turn on the ball saver when you're about to start a mode. Yeah, there's several different ways you could have
Come on, baby, come on.
accomplished the same thing with these center lane shots in a better way. Although I guess the question is this center lane long jump concept better or worse than the Big Hurt jumps with the jumps there.
Where do you think you're going?
Jumps down the center that are further back. I'd argue the jumps in the center and the further back are
I
more
looked up and saw Lady
safe.
Jackpot with all her beauty. Not
So
bad.
I kind of would prefer to do the jumps on Big Hurt more than this table. But Big Hurt is incredibly boring otherwise. And the jumps are more angled and more difficult. And so that's probably what they're trying to avoid with this table, is the idea that you would get halfway up this ramp and then it would drain back down the center. Which, in all fairness for this table, we aren't draining down the center anywhere as much as we're draining out the out lanes. So fixing the out lanes and the angles on this table would be much more preferable. Like, let's just take a moment to realize here. Sure, this is the first pinball table I've played today, so it's been a few hours since I last warmed up my fingers, but it's been 46 minutes and I have not been able to do a super skill shot, earn an extra ball, activate elevator madness, or collect a flashlight. So let's just see. To complete super skill shot, adjust the power when the ball is launched from the plunger so that it enters the lock entry. Okay. Extra ball is automatically awarded at 1.5 billion. Extra ball is awarded if you get 3 extra balls on the slot machine. Extra ball can be lit at the telephone by completing 3 train combos, which that is an angle shot that I've not even been shooting for. If anything, maybe that's the problem with this table, is that it makes you think you should be shooting up the center when maybe you even shouldn't be. Or collecting all 5 clues in a case. Once it's lit, hit something. Exiting the 7th floor from the elevator, and by getting 3 question marks on the slot machine. Elevator madness is a 2-ball multi-ball. Okay. One piece of equipment is collected by exiting the elevator on the 6th floor. Another piece is collected by scoring the 2nd train combo. Train combos are scored by completing a number of train ramp shots. Another piece of equipment is collected by getting 3 magnifying glass reels on the slot machine. Once you have the flashlight, shoot the unlit sewer, collects the map. The map will not be collected if the sewer is lit for any other rewards. Once you have the flashlight, shooting the unlit telephone collects 3 magnifying glasses. Magnifying glasses will not collect if the telephone is lit for any other rewards. Once you have the revolver, each pop-up bumper during multi-ball increases the jackpot by 5 million. Without the revolver, it's only 1 million. Once you have the magnifying glass, each shot, and yeah, we don't need to know any of that. Let's go.
Somebody come quick!
And then
So
I was on the case.
this might be the lowest scoring table that I play as far as getting just standard goals done. Because I think I could definitely put some focus on train combos, and I can definitely put some focus on doing fairly weak skill shots. Really weak skill shots at that rate. But getting the flashlight seems to be fairly crazy. Oh, elevator madness just happened at random. Which there is definitely something weird about that an entire standard goal would potentially only be accomplished by the random luck.
Hey, taxi.
Feels like the table probably should start you on a random floor, and that there's far too many floors in general. And I imagine this probably was a concept at first. It sounded really cool to have like an elevator.
Meet me in the basement?
An elevator toy where you would shoot the ball into like a toy elevator, much like the magician's chest of Theater of Magic. But at some point in the development, the elevator transformed into something that looked like an actual elevator into just weird ramps that does not look anything like an elevator. I'm a little surprised that there aren't more tables that have escalators on them, just platforms that constantly move the ball up or downward. But that's kind of what the Ferris wheel does. It's always the butler. So we got the suspect, and that starts roof mode.
Take a cab.
Oh, this sucks so bad. Like, the angles are so bad when the ball drains back down. This is another one of those tables where it might have made sense just to have a center peg right in line with the slingshots, just something that would divert the ball and bounce it around a little bit, or heck, even if you wanted to put a magnet in it to kind of help the player out.
Somebody come quick!
I honestly think
And then I was on the case.
that super skill shot is the only other one I would be able to accomplish.
Meet me in the basement? Interesting.
It doesn't seem like you ever start
Hey, taxi.
in the basement. It doesn't even seem like you start anywhere close to the basement or the roof. It seems like you always start in the middle. And maybe that has something to do with the synergy there. Do you have to have two multi-ball lit to start multi-ball?
Freeze.
And this is like so many other multi-balls where it's not super interesting. It's like, what is special about multi-ball? There's 3 balls on the table. There needs to be something more. Needs to be more of a focus on how do you get jackpots, why are you getting jackpots, how are you rewarding other shots while going for jackpots. How many times do I have to hit up the center ramps to get a single jackpot? I mean, you literally have to hit 3 shots to get a jackpot, where that feels like that should be closer to a super jackpot reward.
I'm impressed.
Jackpots on this table, not particularly impressive. It doesn't even scream jackpot. That's the problem, is there are lines here potentially for voice actors to say things and make some call outs, and they're just not happening.
Follow that cab.
Yeah, that right ramp, right center, the center right ramp is what I would really like to be able to hit at the moment. Not really hitting that. I think in general, I don't particularly appreciate having to switch shots up as much as a lot of games want you to be able to do. And we can definitely see that a lot of these shots are super tight shots anyways.
Tell me more about Butler.
For some reason, Butler is extremely loyal to me.
Yeah, that voice actor seems to be the only one
Sorry, I have an alibi.
that talks, other than saying sorry I have an alibi,
Take a cab.
which, yeah, I think with some coding you probably should change some of these shots to by
Hop on the
default
train.
activate interrogate suspects.
Ride the train. Hop on the train.
The backhand shots in particular don't feel like something that could be accomplished for a lot of these ramps too. Nor do I think you can get a backhand slap shot
Come on,
that
baby, come on.
would even get the ball up the center.
Darn.
It's like the first time we've
Hey,
lost
taxi.
on roulette. Yeah. I don't get the bowling sound effect. I'm not particularly bothered by the fact that the score multiplier goes up fairly
that
easily
cap.
just by hitting the roulette shot, but that would be fairly boring on a lot of other tables, and you could have easily squeezed 3 top in lanes
You've been practicing.
to spell. Well, you put 4 top in lanes, you spell the word clue. Easy. You don't seem like you're spelling anything on this table. If you are, I've totally missed it. And yeah, 57 minutes into it, I am kind of done with this table. The angles are just not my style. And so many tables have come down to that. And that puts me in that awkward position where, yes, I could see a theoretical player saying Whodunit is a great table and they absolutely love it, and they're just really, really good at the shots. But I think for me and a lot of other players, there's just a lot of frustration here. So I guess you could turn Novice Mode on. Let's see if we can actually do that and play a game. This would be like the first instance of actually. The factory settings for Novice Mode would be 2 minutes, and yet Pinball Arcade has it turned off completely, which is also which that certainly highlights that Pinball Arcade themselves have either decided to editorialize instead of being just the emulator. Let's see. The A mode bong sounds. I assume bong does not mean like a marijuana bong. I imagine it is probably a Chinese bong sound for the attract mode. Let's see. High percentage chance of multi-ball. Roof champ hard mode off. Disable the slots off. You can totally disable and disable the ramp off. Disable the third bank. Alright, well, let's see how this works. As far as 3 minutes of Novice Mode. That idea certainly maybe makes a little bit more sense that you would. Let's exit the game and then start a game and see if the operator mode activates that way. Nope. This pro mode is just garbage. It's literally garbage. The emulation in Pinball Arcade is pretending to emulate the pro mode options, but it actually can't do it. And see, that's just status report. And that's just status report. Alright. So, ball control. Can I, with the ball control, do a lot of stuff? Well, I think what you set yourself up for is you can loop around and you can get in the center and you can get rewards. And surprisingly, that let me go up that ramp. So that is an incredibly gentle ramp, which I'd love to see more gentle ramps on tables. And the ball control on this table is just actually working. And I wonder if the reason why the ball control on this table is slightly working is because of the angle potentially being adjusted, or the pitch on this table being particularly adjusted.
Tell me more about Trixie.
Trixie is always nosing around in my personal affairs.
See, and that bit of information, does that really tell you anything? Or is that just very generic options? We'll just see if that works. So now we're doing the chase scene where we're shooting flashing lanes to catch the killer. And we got him.
You've been practicing.
Although that is him basically crashing into a male figure, not a female figure. Oops. So when you're playing roulette, when you're playing multi-ball mode on this, I'm not sure that there's anything you're really doing other than just ranking up the score higher and higher. It seems to me like the center shots there go up and down. I don't know if there's a real reason for that. I somehow like have 4 balls on the table. I don't think I'm supposed to have 4 balls on the table. I think I accidentally drained one. There wasn't, and then brought it back. Alright, well, let's get rid of a couple balls. There you go. And that brings you to case 2. And you have to just keep on playing while the case is starting.
Tell me more about Victoria.
I always felt Tony would have been a better match than Tex.
Alright. Let's suspect this guy.
Sorry, I have an alibi.
But since we already had caught somebody, is that person eliminated? No. So in the next case, the murderer, Trixie, is just a suspect again. And what happened in the previous case just doesn't matter. So you have to go up ramps pretty much, and then be able to hit
more
the.
About Victoria.
I've dug up some real dirt on Victoria, like that all her husbands wind up dead.
So, Victoria. So some of that evidence is really useful. Some of the interrogation stuff, not so much. And if you find like a shoe, a woman's shoe, does that inherently mean that you are, it is a female murderer?
Get in the cab. Not bad.
It's crazy because it really does kind of highlight this. It is a 4-ball multi-ball. This really highlights that you really should be shooting the telephone most of the time, not shooting the center lane. So the center lane's still in the wrong place. The telephone should be in the middle of the play field. See,
And then I was on the case.
oddly, there is the pop-up ramp.
Come on, baby, come on.
Doesn't seem like it is something I can use ball control to get the ball under, which is weird because that ramp is super easy.
Hey, where'd this come from?
There we got the flashlight, and then if we hit that, that gets you the map.
Better hang on to that.
And then I think at this point this would be when you would be trying for the unlit telephone.
Freeze, clown boy.
Yeah, I can definitely see if you could keep the ball in play on this table that you'd have a pretty great time. But that's the if. Oh, I guess the pop-up just loops the ball around. I didn't realize that. That's a boring pop-up ramp.
Impressive.
Like, really, really boring. I thought it was gonna land the ball in a sinkhole, and it would be possible to potentially have a ball loop all the way on a loop on the left, and then hit a sinkhole in the right, and then the ball getting shot back up the loop from the right and exiting through the left.
Jackpot.
Let's go ahead and let this drain. Alright, so I think here,
Tell me more about Victoria.
every time.
I always felt Tony would have been a better match than Tex.
Okay. When you ask about Victoria, you don't get to really to pick a suspect that time, I guess. Which that means you probably have to do multiple things to light the whodunit part.
Sorry, I have an alibi.
We've hit enough things. So now with the flashlight, that gets you the magnifying glass. But the table really fails to tell you where the next shot is, even, to get the gun. So how are you supposed to know that it's like down a different direction? I don't even know where it is.
Come on, baby, come on. Darn.
So I just have to basically try and target this sinkhole and see if that gives you the revolver. And it doesn't. And it nearly drained the ball out. Having the magnifier eliminated the suspect, which is nice. So I guess that means you might barely have two suspects.
I've dug up some real dirt on Victoria, like that all her husbands wind up dead.
So it feels like if you could get the shots. I want to next time just totally mess it up and get to the point where there is no possible suspect other than the guilty verdict left. That's like a hurry up jackpot.
Most impressive.
It's a little extreme though at that point to start yet another multi-ball. The game is literally designed to give you like 5 different multi-balls if you do all of the cases, and that's just a lot. That is way too much. And see, all the clues are missing now, but the revolver.
And then I was on the case.
Johnny is found dead. If you spell taxi here, does that give you all the things? Yes, it does.
Hey, taxi. Tell me more about Tony.
I've always suspected Tony of fixing Texas brakes.
So we're gonna roll this against the taxi until we spelled everything. Even with all this cheating, I'm only up to 3 billion. This is a fairly low scoring table.
Impressive. Jackpot.
You see, the clues have been
Get the extra
maxed,
ball.
which lights the extra ball. Which shot is the extra ball?
Most impressive. I'm impressed.
Like, my
You've been
controller's
practicing.
vibrating like crazy.
Impressive. Most impressive. Jackpot. You've been practicing. Jackpot. I'm impressed.
Let's see.
Jackpot.
Trying to see where the extra ball might be.
Impressive. Not bad.
There's jackpots all over the place, but I feel like I've hit
I'm
everything,
impressed. You've
which
been practicing.
means probably that the extra ball, the spelling 3 jackpots there should be a super jackpot, not just a regular jackpot.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I think I've hit every hit shot on this table, so a slow ball drain and get the ball back to where it was. Is that an extra ball now when you're not in multi-ball?
Come on, baby, come on.
And the roulette says don't
Darn.
risk it, but what are you really risking? Like, what do you get if you don't risk it?
Most impressive.
Is this extra ball way over in the right out lane? I think it might be. Or we collected extra ball. It does say shoot again, so I guess we just did collect the extra ball at some point and I didn't even see what it was.
Tell me more
Alright,
about
well, let's
Tony.
just move the...
Trixie had always loved Tony.
Sorry, I have an alibi.
Yeah, let's see if we can do the investigation then. Like, the only thing that I'm missing here is a revolver, and I feel like the revolver is collected by getting off on a specific floor only, and that's why I
Up on the
can't
train.
do it. So there's just an element here to this cheating that I don't think I'm ever going to be able to pull off. Meanwhile, we're basically just trying to hit the same ramps.
Not bad.
Second floor.
Take a cab.
As the finally got the phone ringing again.
Tell me more about Tex.
I learned that Tex had a violent temper.
So we think it's Tex. Let's choose to suspect other people besides Tex. Then
Sorry, I have an alibi.
what would be funny is if you actually
Call
lose
that
the
cab.
case. If you eliminate all the suspects except for one. You see there, it just saved me some time and immediately eliminated a suspect, which that must be just a percentage chance. And that time it just straight up turned into the roof chase. So it seems like they don't have a mode
I'm impressed.
100 million for catching Bruno quickly. So that there just is not a scenario at all that works where you can eliminate all the suspects except for one. Which I appreciate that, frankly, because that saves us some time. And that would kind of suck. Alright, we need one ball to drain, and we need one ball to not drain. A girl being murdered in the shower happens way more often than any of the other ones. Or at least it visually stands out so much that it feels like it happens way more often. Whereas other people dying seems to be fairly random, just animations. Suspect eliminated. I think I'll play the rest of this.
That'll be handy.
There we go, we got the revolver. It took forever to get it. You had to get the magnifying glass. Yeah, it seems like now you've gotten everything. So the only thing you could really do here is turn up the reward for all the other items if you really just wanted to max it out.
Hey, taxi.
Almost drained there. Once you get the ball in that area, it's kind of stuck. So I'm just going to focus on getting all the extra ball slash
Get the extra ball.
spelling taxi to have the clues maxed. I got the extra ball, but I don't know what I did to get the extra ball. Okay. So this is pretty much everything lit up. That got me another extra ball. Seems like you can get multiple extra balls.
Extra ball. Tell me more about Tony.
Tony doesn't know a good thing when he sees it.
And see, that just starts over. And this is Tony's palace, so Tony's the...
Get the cab.
That's the guy. And it feels like Tony might be the killer on the fifth case always.
You've been practicing.
Getting that 100 million jackpot seems completely unlikely to happen in natural gameplay. The timer there is just way too low as far as it starts counting down immediately before even the balls have launched. Okay. Let's go and drain a ball out. How many balls do we have left?
Somebody come
And it
quick.
just started again.
And then I was on the case.
So there's nothing more on this table to do other than to try those center lane shots or get really good at hitting ride the train shots or getting really good
Hop on the train.
at hitting the telephone, which arguably hitting the telephone is
Take a cab.
obviously now that I've cheated and figured it out, the shot of all shots. Nothing else really matters. although having the magnifier and having the flashlight and having the map, all of that stuff is slightly helpful. There seems to be no grand finale mode here, so having 5 cases lit
Ride the train.
does seem to be kind of pointless.
Get the extra ball.
But honestly, I just can't appreciate a table that really wants you to avoid hitting the center lane so much. I'm glad Pinball never really created that many shots where
There's some evidence for you.
where potentially somebody was punished for making a shot. But there definitely are some shots
Tell
on
me
tables
more
that
about Tex.
I've
that
always
aren't that good.
suspected Tony of fixing Tex's brakes.
Now, as I'm legitimately playing now, that makes me
Hop on
think
the train.
I should suspect
Ride the train.
Tony,
Hop on the train.
but Tony's not even an option. Tex must be Bruno. And see, they don't even really explain that.
Hey, Tex.
So your first shot would have to be a back shot to get the ball, a backhand shot on the right flipper to get up there.
Most impressive.
And see, that's kind of a realistic timer to get about 74 million, not the full 100 million. The thing that's most shocking is how well the ball control worked on this table. This might be a table that is a paragon example of having a very, very light pitch and not going for sharp angled tables. And honestly, I doubt too many arcade owners actually thoughtfully would have adjusted the pitch on the table
And then
at all.
I was on the case.
They probably would just try to make it more difficult, just to make money, or easier to try and make it fun, but getting the pitch right is kind of crazy difficult, and a matter of subjective taste. And I should probably just let the balls drain out, because inherently this is going to take so long.
Come on, baby. Come on.
Next time I do roulette, I need to just say don't risk it. Let's see what happens. See if it actually has you gambling like some of your score. The spinner ejects the bet. Oh, so you don't risk it, so the spinner goes up higher and higher. So it's like multiple roulette shots
Ride the train.
of what you're looking for. So there might be a wizard goal, if we were ever to get to the wizard goals, which we won't, around having a max bet roulette shot.
There's some evidence.
It should just be trying to choose who done it each time. The evidence you collect digitally is not the same evidence you collect by spelling taxi, which is interesting too. And if you can't get that telephone shot, that that telephone's gonna ring a lot to irritate you.
Answer the phone.
Getting some weak shots. I don't see how I'm accidentally getting the ball to
Get in the cab.
get behind the standing targets there, but it did. It snuck behind it. See, at the very
Most impressive.
at the very least, it feels like your skill shot should be able to hit the telephone. I can see a whole theme around a bigger toy telephone. One with like magnets on either side that would lift the balls and hold it, and or maybe the pinballs end up landing on the rotary dial of the old-fashioned telephone.
Follow that cab.
Or it's a pop-up bumper design. It is fairly obvious that the floors do slowly eliminate, which does make me feel like there's a chance that there's a wizard goal to exit on every single floor, when really that should just be a mystery
Hop
wheel.
on the train.
Yeah, this would make so much more sense if you shot up the elevator toy and it gave you a mystery wheel.
Ride the train.
There seems to be 0 video mode,
Take a cab.
like so many other tables. The back art of the table is kind of dull too. That's very, very nitpicky, but yeah.
Most impressive.
I am not happy with the angles on this
I'm
table.
impressed.
The concept's fine. The animation needs some tweaks to be more family friendly. The gimmick's bad. Though with the elevator. So yeah, I probably could get these with another 2 hours minimum of play. That would be my guess. Let's see. Yeah, you just have like this picture of a house, mansion, and then a city. And then the entire back part of this is just more cities, more buildings, for no reason. Yeah, the easiest one thing to change would be get rid of this underfield part of this, the rise up and sink down standing targets. Get rid of this, the curved nature of the elevator, and just let the ball end up lining up for the pop-up bumpers instead. So that would really just be all the shots. So you would just basically cut a large portion of this curve away and remove everything on the left away, remove the sinkhole, and then just a lot of shots would go straight up and hit a pop-up bumper and then potentially get knocked back down. So you probably would want a single line center target right in front of that pop-up bumper, and that's it. And then what you would do is, instead of having the train ramp drain to the pop-up bumpers, the train ramp would then have a upper field with some pegs that would end up lining up to these curves in these different choices, which honestly they could have been moved further back too, to kind of free up the middle of the table a little bit so it's more visually empty. You're kind of wasting a lot of space on roulette with the spinner and the sinkhole being all the way there, when you could have potentially moved some things around and had the launcher go all the way up to this point. You could have had a top lane spelling clue with lane select. You probably need to focus a little bit more on the sinkhole and the telephone, so I'd probably put the telephone where this ramp is and this ramp where the telephone is, to adjust for that. Particularly compared to Theater of Magic, which is an unfair comparison, sure, but this table is not impressive with its toys by any means. Just a plastic roulette table, a plastic telephone. This is another Bailey table, I believe. Yeah, and I feel like the Bailey tables are not the ones that excite me. So, oh, I forgot. You have to turn it off from friends mode. It's crazy that it's in friends mode to start with. So, overall, we have people that claim to have 900 billion that are probably cheaters, and then it quickly jumps down to 200, 100 billion, but you are in the top 50 still seeing people with 87 billion on this table, and it seems fairly doable if you were really, really good at this table, that you might be able to get that, since even my legitimate score got me 767 million, which puts me in the 25,000th place overall. But I bet not that many people are playing this in general. Weekly, playing this on a Saturday, I am in 60th position of what I suspect is less than 120. Yep, 106. And weekly overall, the highest score is 21 billion and 10 billion. So even if this one was cheating, I doubt all of these are cheating, but maybe. You never know. Then monthly, playing this on the 17th day of the month, we've got 24 billion for a couple of them. And my score for the month is 143, and that seems more than fair considering I don't even really appreciate the table. I feel like specifically this table would feel better. Let's see. Can we find Crossfire? This is the table I think I'm looking for. Or Firepower. Let's see. Firepower. See. So if you look at Firepower, Firepower being a very old, simplistic table, electromechanical table, instead of a solid state table. Maybe you do something like this for the elevator shot. You've got 4 bumpers in a square grid with this center shot here. Maybe that represents the elevator shot, and maybe then that's a sinkhole instead of a standing peg, and it pops the ball up to the upper playfield that would exist. And then maybe you spell something with 3 curved standing targets. And now in retrospect, looking at just how incredibly curved these standing targets are, I really have to applaud that. And maybe you just, on a lot of tables, just simplify things. As much as I love the idea of tables being crazy, sometimes there is just an argument for simplicity. This could have been, for instance, the roulette wheel, and then the ramp could have gone this way, and there could have been your clue. This could have been the other ramp. You could have had the telephone generally in the same place here, and it really wouldn't have changed too much. Or you could have had the telephone gimmick somewhere else, like down over here on this ramp. But yeah, compared to Firepower, which just as a random choice compared to Firepower. I think Whodunit goes too crazy with it. I think, though, in all fairness, you probably would want to compare it to something more contemporary. And we can't really look at this table. This is a Theater of Magic, which is now my #1 pick for a table, is just screaming tons of content, tons of stuff going on. But the angles are done way better. You saw in the last episode, assuming you watched it, me score very high and do very well on this table, whereas it was just a total and complete struggle to even accomplish anything on Whodunit, which we haven't really had a lot of that in any of the other tables. I think even Jackpot, if you're going to have that gambling theme, is a better gambling theme table. Although I don't know why you have a gambling theme at all. The fact that there is a gambling theme for Jackpot and Whodunit does kind of scream that both table designers were getting desperate and trying anything and everything to potentially get people's attention and have more people play. My complaints aside, though, it's not super surprising that Whodunit isn't that great. They can't all be the best of the best. And next time we will be doing Junkyard, and then Safecracker, and then Scared Stiff, and then Arabian Nights. And there's a high chance that 4 out of those 4 tables are going to be absolutely wonderful. And it's not like it's going to get any worse for the last few 90s tables. If anything, we may find out that the 2000s, 2010 era tables merged here are about the most disappointing. Yeah, and we may have to have a different kind of way of covering these tables that I haven't actually purchased, since I'm just going to play the trials on them. Well, I'll have to think about how I'm going to do that later. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.